So if you've ever wanted to travel to a different dimension, I have a way you can get there right here. This is the declassified CIA document analysis and assessment of gateway process, and it centers around astral projection. This was declassified back in 1983, and it became trendy to read it during the pandemic when people were home looking for something to do. So I want to go over 2 quick points before we get into this. Number 1, this is not about trusting the government. I'm not telling you to trust the government because the CIA wrote this. No, this is interesting to me because those who govern us researched this extensively to just find out our potential as human beings and basically the power of our minds. So that is of interest to me. The other thing is, this is not new information. This was declassified in 1983. And when I say this isn't new information, I'm talking about this is ancient information. This is stuff we have known for thousands of years. So this isn't anything new. Nobody's saying the CIA invented astral projection or anything like that. It is just researched and it is packaged up in the CIA document. So let's get into it. So I'll break down the document line by line, and there are 2 books referenced in it that I have read. There are other books referenced in it, but there are 2 books that I did read. So we'll go over those as we need to. So let's get into the document. So the first 2 pages of the document are basically a cover letter. Commander McDonald was asked by his superior to find out what the gateway experience was all about and to report back. So these are the first lines of the cover letter. You tasked me to provide an assessment of the gateway experience in terms of its mechanics and ultimate practicality. As I set out to fulfill the tasking, it soon became clear that in order to assess the validity and practicality of the process, I needed to do enough supporting research and analysis to fully understand how and why this process works. So the gateway experience is a series of meditative exercises developed by the Monroe Institute. The Monroe Institute was founded by Robert Monroe. He was a radio broadcasting executive that became interested in altered states of consciousness and out-of-body experiences. And that's because he was having his own spontaneous out-of-body experiences. So that's what led him to look more into it. He went on to write 3 books on the topic. One of them, Journeys Out of Body, is actually referenced in the CIA document. And I think this was published, let me check, in 1971. Okay, so let's get into what the gateway actually is. It is said to help you achieve altered states of consciousness through something called hemisync. And that's listening to tones in headphones that sync up the left and right brain hemispheres. And that is said to help your consciousness move beyond your physical body, your physical reality, and perhaps into other dimensions. So the second line reads, "Frankly, sir, that proved to be an extremely involved and difficult business. Initially based on the conversations with a physician who took the gateway training with me, I had recourse to the biomedical models developed by Isaac Bentoff to obtain information concerning the physical aspects of the process." So if you've been around my social media for a while, you have heard of Isaac Bentoff. I have done plenty of videos on this book, actually. So let me tell you a little bit about him. He is an Israeli-American inventor, scientist, and mystic who blended hard science with deep spiritual insights. So he kind of bridged that gap between spirituality and science. He created the first cardiac catheter used in biomedical research, but later turned his focus to consciousness. So he believed that the body, mostly the mind and the heart, generated vibrational frequencies that connected to the universe. And so the CIA document heavily leans on his biomedical models to explain how altered states of consciousness may be achieved. And of course, like any other person in this world, he is not without criticism. So one major critique is that he had no formal background in neuroscience or consciousness studies. Some physicists said that his explanations, especially in Stalking the Wild Pendulum, oversimplified and misinterpreted quantum mechanics and vibrational theory. Now, I want to read a quick quote from his book, and it is very similar to other quotes that I've read in other books written by neuroscientists and neurosurgeons and physicists. It's all along the same lines, and it reads like this. "This book is designed for young people of all ages, by which I mean those whose imagination has not been stifled by the standard educational process." So what does that mean? For me, that means we enter the educational system during our formative years where our minds can be molded pretty much into anything. It can be molded in a certain direction that leads us away from our intuition to be free thinkers. And so that's what that means to me. Now, one other thing before I continue. I want to make sure that we all understand that we are all having a human experience. I am a human with thoughts, feelings, my own emotions, consciousness. So let me remind you that no one can ever take away an experience that you've had. So if you've had some sort of, let's say, mystical experience during a dream, don't let anyone talk you out of it. Don't let anyone talk you out of your intuition, out of the things that you feel manifested from a single thought in your mind. Not a single person on this earth can tell you that it didn't happen, because you are a living, breathing human being that has your own consciousness and your own thoughts and your own experiences. They can try to convince you that it didn't happen and perhaps that your mind was playing tricks on you, but it is up to you and only you to either be convinced of that or trust your own experience. That's all I wanted to say. So let's get back to this. By the way, we are only about here, like the midway of the first paragraph. So let me read some of my notes. Even though the cover letter of this CIA document says that the commander was tasked with describing the nature and functioning of human consciousness as it relates to the gateway process, the truth is we don't actually know what consciousness is or where it comes from. So any living person out there can tell you that's not the way it works. That's not what consciousness is. We don't actually know. So trust your own gut. Anyway, back to this document. Then I found it necessary to delve into various sources for information concerning quantum mechanics in order to be able to describe the nature and functioning of human consciousness. I had to be able to construct a scientifically valid and reasonable lucid model of how consciousness functions under the influence of the brain hemisphere synchronization technique employed by Gateway. Once this was done, the next step involved recourse to theoretical physics in order to explain the character of the time-space dimension and the means by which expanded human consciousness transcends into achieving Gateway's objectives. So basically, he will explain how our consciousness can travel out of our bodies, beyond our physical reality, into other dimensions. And this is just based off the Gateway process. Finally, I again found it necessary to use physics to bring the whole phenomenon of out-of-body states into the language of physical science to remove the stigma of its occult connotations and put it in a frame of reference suited to objective assessment. So he will be using physics to explain how out-of-body experiences may be possible. And he's doing this, of course, because the majority of the time, whenever we speak about something like this, anything that is mystical or spiritual, it is automatically assumed that you are dabbling in some sort of black arts or trying to summon demons while you're meditating. I mean, those are all things I've been accused of just by reading things like this. So he says the only way he was able to safely explain the Gateway experience was through physics so that there wouldn't be as much judgment.